Well, we are on part number 6 of this series, and like I already said, we're going to stray just a little bit today from our kind of doing an overview of the book of Proverbs. I'm going to start in Proverbs just so I can keep it in the series, but here's where I want to start. A few weeks ago, I interviewed my pastor and somebody that I just admire and honor greatly. And some of you watched the interview that I did with Pastor Tommy Barnett. And in that message, he made a statement that has just been echoing in my heart ever since he made it. And he said something he said, Ken, right now, during this corona, during this virus, and the virus was pretty fresh. We were probably only 2, maybe 3, 4 weeks into it during that time. And he said, right now, we are making history. And man, that has just echoed in me. Because with all of the craziness that's going on in our world, when I'm 10, 20, 30 years older than I am now, and I look back on this moment, I hope that I wrote this moment in history in a way that I'm not ashamed of. I hope that my little baby granddaughter, and maybe grandchildren, plural, will look back on this time and say, boy, I remember how my parents led. I remember how my grandparents led. I remember, and they are able to read history that we are writing right now with our lives and not be ashamed of it. Wow. And so I really want to talk about your legacy letters. What are you writing? The canvas for tomorrow is a blank page. And with all this unrest, with opinions on every side, with posts coming faster than we can read them, and more things being documented, whether we say it or whether we write it, it's out there in social media, and it's forever documented. What is your life writing during this time? Let's go to our book, the book of Proverbs, chapter number 3. I'm going to read 10 verses, which is a little bit longer than normal. I just had a hard time knowing where to stop. These 10 verses, they deserve their own series. They're very rich. Let's look at them together. Come on, everybody. My son, do not forget my teachings, but keep my commands in your heart. For they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. I'm sure you wouldn't mind a little peace and a little prosperity, especially during these times, right? Let love and faithfulness, I want you to pay attention to those 2 words, love and faithfulness, never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Notice these red letters. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Write them on the tablet of your heart. I'm going to come back to that because that phrase is kind of what grabbed me. But let's just read a little further and see what else. Then you will win favor and a good name. I'll take that. In the sight of God and in the sight of man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. I'll take that also. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Boy, we see a lot of that going on today. Fear the Lord and shun evil. A couple more verses. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Check this next verse out. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. Wow, there's a lot there. I really had a hard time knowing where to stop because that it's so rich. There's so much in those first 10 verses of chapter number 3. That deals with everything from money management to how to have peace, to how to have prosperity, to how to protect our heart. There is just so much in that. But hidden kind of in this obscure, but maybe not so obscure, but in the wealth of information in those 10 verses, there's this line, and it just grabs a hold of me. So I hear Tommy Barnett echoing, we're making history. And then I'm studying the book of Proverbs and I see right love and faithfulness on your heart. And it just started making me think about the things that our life is writing a story right now. And so my question is, what story is your life writing right now? How are you going to be remembered during this crazy time in our world's history? Today, you're writing your legacy. What you're doing today is what you might be remembered for. You see, I think that how we handle the tough times in life are how people remember us. It's the legacy that we live. We're writing history books. You're writing your story. You are writing about what you did during the coronavirus, during the social injustice, during the rioting, during the polarized time in our history. During all this, what you write on your heart will be passed down from generation to generation. What you're writing right now is what the next generation will read. Wow, that makes me seriously contemplate every day my actions. And I'm not just talking about physically writing, right? I'm not talking about what we get on Twitter and Facebook. I'm not talking about all that. I'm just talking about what is your life? Your life is the canvas. Your attitudes, your character is the ink. And so what are you writing? What are you writing in your life? Look at it this way in 2 Corinthians. I love this. I'm going to read from the Message. You can look it up later in some other translations. There's just a lot of great ways this is said. Your very lives are a letter that anyone can read by just looking at you. Come on. Have you ever heard the phrase, actions speak louder than words? Your lives are a letter. Oh, man. I've said multiple times during this virus that how we as a church, how I as a leader, as a dad, as a husband, how what you're doing right now is what will be remembered for the years to come. Christ Himself wrote it, not with ink, but with God's living Spirit. Not chiseled into stone, but carved into human lives. And we publish it. Oh, wow. Is that good? I love that right there. So last Sunday, we had the wonderful privilege of celebrating with our son and daughter-in-law and our daughter and Patty and I and Carmen's mom, Joanne. It was the biggest gathering we've had in like 3 months. We all got together for little Kennedy's 1-year birthday. Wow, what a riot. We had a blast. We laughed. We reminisced. It was just an incredible day. And I thought about that because when I was 1 year old, I went through Hurricane Camille, and it was a devastating hurricane that hit the shores of Louisiana. And I don't remember it, but I've been told stories about it. And I started thinking, Kennedy's not going to remember her first-year birthday. But she is going to be told stories of, at your 1-year birthday party, there weren't other kids, there wasn't a big gathering of people because we were in the middle of a shutdown. We were in the middle of Corona. And she will be told stories of what happened once upon a time at her 1-year-old birthday. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, what story will she be told? What are we writing? What legacy letters are we writing right now for the next generation to read and gain hope from, gain encouragement from? I want to be the one that one day they say, well, I remember when Grandma and Grandma went through XYZ. And they never wavered, and their faith was never stronger. And yes, they shed tears, but there was some prayerful nights. What legacy are we writing right now? I don't want the future generation to look forward and say, well, during the tough times, my grandpa, he tweeted. No. I want my life to write the history. Come on, are you guys following me on that? Now, all through biblical history, there are those who face shutdown. So we're not the only ones. And I'm not going to give you a long list, but all through biblical history and history for itself for that matter, but let's just look at biblical history. And there were those that faced containment. There were those that faced isolation, or the word lockdown. They were in lockdown. And I know you haven't liked it. I haven't liked it. We're in the land of the free. We don't like to be locked down. And Americans especially, we don't like to be told what to do. Can I get an amen? I know we don't like to be told what to do. In fact, the term lockdown, the very term, leaves us feeling like we don't have a choice. But I'm here to tell you today that we do have a choice. There might be a lot of choices that have been taken away from us during this season. But that doesn't mean all of our choices. What you write is your choice. And you get to choose what you're going to write, how your life is going to write this moment in time. And are you writing about what you hate? Are you writing about what you're against? Or are you going to write love and faithfulness on your heart? Are you going to write a masterpiece? Come on, everybody. We're not the only ones who have had to face seasons of isolation. I mean, come on, think through it. Just in the Bible, David in the cave, running for his life. Joseph in prison, sold out by his brothers. How about some more like John on the Isle of Patmos? How about Moses in the middle of the desert? How about Noah locked up in an ark? And the list goes on and on. But I want to consider four, and I'm going to call them four letters. I want to consider four people in the Bible that were in what we'll call isolation, tough situations, and we have letters that they wrote that we can read about their legacy. And I want to use it just to encourage you. What is your life writing? What is your voice penning during this time? Come on, everybody with me? I got four to give you. Let's see if we can get through them in the next 27 minutes. Here we go. Number one, I want us to consider Jonah's journal. I just want us to consider what did he write during an incredible time. Now, the book of Jonah is in the Bible. You can read it, and it's pretty fascinating. I think it's the only book that the hero of the story, it opens up with him as the villain of the story. I mean, he's disobeying God. He's basically, if you don't know the story, Jonah is basically running from God. And too often when you hear this story, we hear about Jonah being in the belly of the well, and everybody says, well, could that happen or not happen? I don't know. And the story becomes all about the well. But let's back up a little bit. The story is about a man who is running from God. But God put him in isolation to slow him down. What? Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm going there. I'm going to go there with you, everybody. Maybe this season. See, Jonah was called to go preach to a different group of people, a different social class, a different ethnicity. He was called to love a group of people that didn't believe the way he believed. Oh, come on, don't make me go there. And he didn't want to give love to a group of people that didn't look like, talk like, act like he did. So he ran from God. I'm going to avoid that, but I just threw it out there to mess with you a little bit. And he ran from God. And of course, you know the story. He stowed away on a ship. Storms came. The sailors found him. And he said, I'm the cause for the storm. So the sailors threw him overboard. A whale came along and swallowed him. And he's in the belly of... God has a way of stopping you when you continue to run from what He's called you to do. And so for every one of us, all of us have been called to love a different group of people. People that would normally be on the outside of our circle. We've all been called to do that. But here's a question for you. When we look at Jonah's journal, I want to ask you, I want to present the possibility that maybe this season, that God is using this season to stop you from running. Has it forced you to look at yourself? See, we as Americans, we're used to being busy, and we can hide behind our schedule, and we can hide behind our jobs, and we can hide behind our extracurricular activity, and we can hide behind all of that stuff. But what is it that you have been running from? What is it that you have been ignoring that God is wanting you to pay attention to? I would say, don't come out of the isolation until you know, what is God speaking to you? What thing did God want to confront in your life? Now, I don't know about you, but I'd much rather have a shutdown in my own house with Netflix and internet and Zoom than to be in the belly of a well. Come on now. I know I gotta. Is there a little whale emoji? Can you emoji a little fish, a little whale, a little fishing pole, something? Come on. Show me a little love. Let me know you're paying attention. I mean, come on, here's a guy in the belly, really, of a well, wrapped in seaweed. Of course, I don't know. You pay big money in spas nowadays to get seaweed wraps, is what I'm told. I wouldn't know firsthand. It's just what I've been told, all right? But in this time, you've had to face yourself. And see, God had something better for Jonah. But before God's better could come to Jonah, God had to cause Jonah to be stopped. Now, it wasn't God's intention. He gave him a chance up front, but Jonah was running. So for God to promote Jonah to another level, for God to love people and share His love with a group of people, He had to stop one man that was running. I don't know about you, but this stop has caused me to think, am I really loving my neighbor? Am I loving my friends in this community that are outside this church world that we live in? Have you been running from something that God wants to do in your life? Now, many have emailed me. Some have said, I've seen some posts that say, man, during this time it's made me get serious with God. I've heard some, you've written testimonies and said, you know what, God, I pray God would protect my job and that I would give back to the Lord financially. And God's done that. And I've seen your promises that, man, I will never not allow God to be number one in my life. I'll never stop giving to the work of God. I will, and you've made promises during this shutdown. Well, Jonah got real with God in the belly of that well. Here's my question. Have you got real with God during this time? God has used this all kind of craziness going on. And some of us have slowed down enough to get real with God. And watch this. Stop your chores for a minute. Some of you have made promises and vows to God. That, hey, God, if I don't lose my job, I will. Hey, God, if you'll see me through this. Hey, God, during this time. And you've made promises to God. And Jonah did the same thing. And something spectacular happened. Let's look at it. From the book of Jonah. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord, his God. He said, I'm in distress. Has anybody else been there? I called to the Lord and He answered me, because that's what God does. He answers. What I have vowed, and I'm skipping all the way to verse number 9 now. This is Jonah talking, what I have vowed, I will make good. I will say, salvation comes from the Lord. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah to dry land. That's just the funniest picture ever, but you're not here, so it's hard to tell anything funny to a camera, all right? But here's the deal. During this time of shutdown, Jonah made some promises. And the moment he made those promises and declared he would keep those vows, his situation changed. Our situation physically might not change, but our attitude is writing a story, and our attitude can cause things to change. Jonah moved from disobedience to obedience, and he rewrote his story. Here's another question for you to consider. What will be different for you after all of this? Just a thought. Let's do another one. Number 2, let's talk about Paul's pages. Paul is an incredible Bible character in the Bible. He wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Many of you know his story, but for those of you that don't, he used to be a religious zealot, and he would go out and literally martyr, literally kill all those that were called Christ followers. He had a major salvation experience, and he became an ambassador of God and just began to preach the gospel. And for that, for standing up for things, he got in all kind of trouble. And he was thrown into prison. I think a lot of the books anyway, are written from a prison cell. And so here we pick up Paul. You talk about isolation. He is in a prison cell. He's chained to 2 guards. Sometimes he's under the prison cell in the nastiest, top security kind of prison cell. Not like the prison cells we have today. And this moment that looks like his worst, he chooses to write his best. See, any of us can write with our life good things during good times. But Paul demonstrates to us that when you're at your worst is when you write your best. And man, I love this. And there's been so many times I've been tempted to argue with people online. But I said, no. At my worst, I need the world to see Christ's love and faithfulness written on my heart. Come on, somebody. I don't always get it right. Maybe I'm preaching to myself today. But I love this because if we look at the book, many of the writings of Paul, but let's just look at the book of Philippians. And in prison, in isolation, in shutdown, here's Paul's legacy letters. Rejoice in the Lord always. Come on. Always? Really? Even when I lost my job, always. Even in the middle of a shutdown, always. In the middle of craziness, rejoice. Not in the stuff, rejoice in God. Oh, in case you didn't hear it, I'm going to say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. Come on. Could we just work on that line? Let your gentleness. Could we just be kind? Could we be gentle? Could we ask the question, what does love require of me? Let your gentleness be evident to all, because the Lord is near. And do not be anxious about anything, but every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. So God says pray about everything, even little things. Quit thinking that there's too many bigger issues than you and your need. God said pray about those things. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. The peace of God that makes no sense when the world is in upheaval, when the world is in chaos. It won't make logic, but God's peace will flood your heart. Whoa, I love all that. Paul's sitting in a prison cell. He doesn't know what's going to happen next. But he knows that God will handle it. I don't know what's going to happen next. I can't even tell you what date we're going to open church. We've projected dates and then realized, man, there's just no way because of. But I know God's got it. And I know God's got you. And I know that when we can't physically gather, you and God can gather. Paul's saying, man, I don't have any of the fellowship of my friends in here. I'm all alone. But I'm going to rejoice because God has got this. He says, and he goes on and he writes incredible, crazy things like, yeah, no matter what situation I'm in, I've learned to be content with and without. I've learned to be content. Because my contentment is not from my job. My contentment is not from what's happening unfair to me. My contentment is in Christ Jesus. And then in the middle of all that, he says, no matter if it's a good time or a bad time, whether I have plenty or not, whether I'm hungry or have plenty, he says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You want to talk about a legacy letter. Come on, everybody. I want them to be able to read about me when I'm dead and gone. Man, they went through a crazy time in history, but they stood there going, we can survive it. We could do it. We're good through Christ. I can get through all this. Come on now. In a season of separation and isolation, Paul's post on Facebook was, come on, rejoice in the Lord always. Wow. See, Paul refused to write about maybe even what he was angry about right now and chose to write about the future. He chose to write with the next generation in mind. And how many people have found encouragement from the letter of legacy he wrote to the church at Philippi? Wow. What if anger, what if fear, what if bitterness didn't pick up the pen? What if love and faithfulness was written on your heart? Because out of the heart, come on somebody, I know you're hearing that today. Unless you're hiding, because you don't want to hear no more of this message. But for those of you that are still left, we got 2 to go. Here's number 3. Number 3 is let's look at Caleb's commentary. All right? Caleb, he's Moses. Okay, they come out of Egypt. They're in slavery. They come out of Egypt. They're going to the promised land, the land of milk and honey, the land of blessings. And Moses says, hey, I need 12 guys, 12 from the tribe, 12 to go in and spy out the land and let us know what we're against. 12 of the leaders, mind you, go into the promises of God to check out what's going on. And they come back, and if you know any Bible story here, you know the 12 spies, they came back. Watch this. And the 12 spies, 10 of them brought back a negative report. 10 of them tweeted out to Moses, we better not do this. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I just can't help it right now. 10 leaders did not write a good report. 2 leaders wrote an incredible legacy letter that we're still reading about today. Joshua and Caleb wrote legacy letters with their life, and we're still reading and still getting encouragement and instruction and inspiration from these 2 that dared in the midst of trying times to write, come on, a legacy letter. Look at it with me in the book of Numbers, rather lengthy portions of Scripture. I've only picked a few verses. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here's the fruit. It's good. Here's evidence. It's all good. But the people, there's always a but. And the but is what always gets you in trouble. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. Notice the adjectives, very large. We even saw the descendants of Anak there. Those are giants, okay? Then Caleb's commentary, writing it down. Caleb says, hold on, everybody. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, hey, I don't care about all that. We should go and take possession of the land. Oh, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, watch this, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. Check this out. And, come on, you didn't know there was stuff about Facebook and Twitter in the Bible, did you? And they spread amongst the Israelites a bad report. They poured fuel on negativity. They incited a riot. They spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. They said the land we explored devoured. Look at the exaggeration. It's a flat out lie. The land we explored devours those living in it. What? Really? There's no evidence of that. Would the ground just open up and swallow them? I mean, there's no evidence of that. All the people we saw there were of great size. I love the all-inclusive all the people there. The land was, all of that kind of terminology was going on. And they spread a negative narrative. Listen, friends, you cannot put a fish, praying hands, smiley face emoji, I don't mean to offend anybody, comment, and puke out your thoughts and write a negative narrative and expect, oh, I didn't mean anything. Just because you put a smiley face at the end of venting, come on, somebody. They spread a negative narrative. And here's what I've learned. Maybe I relearned in this time. Negative always gets more attention. 10 wrote a negative letter. And by the way, those 10 that wrote the negative letter, we don't even know who they are. They've faded into history. But if you're going to leave a legacy, if you're going to have, you're making history right now. Will you be forgotten, or will your encouragement? The negative narrative always, you can see it right here, always embellishes the story. Negative always attracts drama, and drama loves to be on a stage. Hello, somebody. Why can't we just get some good people on the news? Just some people that are kind of loving God, some people that aren't stirring up problems, some people that are loving their neighbor, some people that are mowing yards, some people that are giving away food, some people that have sacrificed so that others can keep their jobs. Come on, somebody. See, negative attracts drama, and drama always has to have the stage. And how about this? Come on, Radius, please, I'm asking you, let's be people that write and speak what gives life. Let's fuel some dreams. Let's fuel some hope. Let's inspire some dreams. Caleb wrote a different letter, and he had a completely different outcome. Fast forward, remember we're writing legacy letters. So let's fast forward, because one day people are going to look back on how he acted in this tough time. Fast forward 40 years into the book of Joshua. Check this out. I got to read it to you. I know it's a lot, but come on, hang with me today. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me to Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my fellow Israelites who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt in fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. See, he was able to lean back on what he had done in the past. I don't want to look back on the past and be ashamed of how I'm acting and what I'm saying right now. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance, legacy, and that of your children, legacy. Forever, legacy, because you have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. Now then, just as the Lord promised, He has kept me alive for 45 years since that time. While Israel moved about in the wilderness, while all the people were just floundering around, for 45 years He held on and He wrote a legacy letter. Oh, wow. So here I am today, 85 years old, exclamation point. I think when you're 85 and you're still strong, you have the right to put an exclamation point. 85 years old. I've seen it all. I've been through it all. And I can look back on the 40-year-old me and not be ashamed of the legacy I wrote. Come on, friends. I don't want to look back on this time and say, ooh, I sure acted, fill in the blank. I am still as strong today. In other words, my resolve is still as strong today as the day that Moses sent me out. I am just as vigorous to go out to this battle now as I was then. Now give me the hill country that the Lord promised me on that day. Read the rest of that. It's powerful. One translation says, give me this mountain. There's a mountain waiting for you if you don't get caught in the ditch of negativity. There's a mountain waiting for you if you don't give up in the ditch of despair and get down in all the nasties with people. Come on, Christians. Let's rise above all the garbage, because there's a mountain waiting for those that would dare to write love and faithfulness as their legacy letter. Come on, I wish you were here right now. You'd be on your feet applauding. I know you would be. Come on, you're probably in your living room applauding right now. All right. Talk about a legacy. Woo! That's a legacy. Okay, I got to do the last one. I got 5 minutes and 48 seconds left. Come on, hang with me. Here we go. Let's talk about Daniel's diary. You see what I did there? I kind of like that. All right, Daniel's diary. Daniel. Okay, if you don't know the story of Daniel, he's a book in the Bible also, but he's a guy. He was a teenager when he was taken as a slave to the Babylonian Empire and to serve a king in a foreign country. And there's so much to unpack there, but let me just he had three friends, and they changed his three friends' name. They tried to change his name. They tried to change Daniel's name. Let me just cut right to it. I ask you, don't let a bad situation, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's injustice, whether it's abuse, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's a bankruptcy, whatever it is, don't let a bad situation change your name. Don't let the coronavirus and all that surrounds it destroy your destiny. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with my daughter. I asked her permission to share part of this. She lives right next door to us, so we've had a lot of opportunity to have some pretty cool conversations. And one day, maybe 2 months into this, she said, "Man, Dad, I'm kind of tired of being shut in." And I know many of you can relate. And she said, the thing that makes it tough is that everything that makes me, it feels like it's been taken away from me. So my daughter is a highly social person. She likes adventure. She likes being on the move. She likes being out. She likes experiencing new things. If you know Enneagram, she's a 7 on the Enneagram. That explains a lot. If you're a 7, you get it. 7s probably have had a harder time in the shutdown than a 5. My son's a 5, and he's just chillaxing. He's all cool. He's like, whatever. Anyway. And so she said, "Dad, all my theater shows have been canceled. I haven't been in a restaurant in 3 months. I don't go anywhere. I don't socialize with anybody. I haven't experienced nothing." And we just started talking about how we can't let an event like this change who we are. And so my daughter had this brilliant solution that I am just over the moon excited about. She called her grandpa, Patty's dad, her grandpa, and he's in his late 80s now. An incredible man, incredible legacy, conservative, somewhat quiet, won't necessarily tell you his story unless you ask him. And so Janessa called him and asked him, said, "Grandpa, I'd like to do a legacy interview with you." And she explained that she would like to interview her grandpa and record it so that one day, I mean, he's in his upper 80s, so that one day when he's gone, because none of us are going to live forever, that we would have the richness and the wealth of his story. How he overcame, how a baby born in the Great Depression, what that looked like. How he met Grandma. What were the greatest highs and the greatest lows? What were his greatest achievements? What did he feel was his biggest failures? She said, "I just want to talk with you. I just want to interview you. I just want to ask you some questions. And I want to record it because one day when you're gone, we want to hear your voice." Our grandkids want to, she don't even have kids. She's not even married. And she says, "I want this for my kids. And I want this for my brother's kids. I want this to be our legacy letter." Because a lot of people will see where we're at and not realize that people had to fight and had to pay a price. And if we stand in any level of success today, it's because we're standing on somebody's shoulders and somebody's accomplishments. So, Grandpa, would you tell us how we got here from there? Whew. I want to ask you, friends, refuse to let the tragedies of the past or even the current situations steal your identity. Daniel, you'll know him, his most famous thing, he was thrown into the lion's den. A predator is ready to destroy him. But he was able to face something that should have devoured him. Daniel was able to sleep through it all. I like to say his problem became his pillow. He just chilled out in the middle of chaos. Because he knew that God had a plan for his life. And ladies and gentlemen, God has a plan for your life. Write your legacy. Make it strong. Pour fuel, not on the problems, but pour fuel on your dreams. When Daniel, this is the end of the story, I close with this. When Daniel came out of the pit, all of the nation bowed a knee to God. Wow. Because of how Daniel acted during the shutdown. Here's my question, and I end with, will your legacy letter cause others to consider what makes you tick? Will your legacy, will what you write on your heart, will it cause others to want to be inspired by you, encouraged by you? Or what you're writing right now, will people want to ignore? Will it just become more white noise? Come on, friends. This is our time to write our legacy letters. And that's my word of wisdom for today. I hope you'll receive it.